In this video tutorial, we are going to cover how to deal with a timer communications issue that comes up in the middle of your race. So, we are assuming that you had timer communications at the beginning of your race, but then lost it for some reason. This tutorial is using version 22 of the software. However, what we will cover applies to all other versions of GrandPrix Race Manager. Problems can arise during your race, as Murphy's Law can strike at any time. So, it helps to be prepared for some possible scenarios that can happen. One of those is a problem with the timer communications. If you run into a timer communications problem during the race, the first thing that you should do is check the connections between the timer and the computer. Then check the connections between the timer and the start switch. Make sure that nothing has become disconnected or is loose. Check that you do not have any extension cords running adjacent to the timer's start cable or the serial cable to the computer. Extension cords can cause electronic interference with the timer's cables. We recommend running any extension cords on one side of the track and the timer's cables on the other side of the track. If an extension cord needs to cross the timer's cables, it is best to have them cross at a 90-degree angle. Lastly, make sure that you have power to your timer. If there aren't any obvious issues that you can find and if you don't think that you can get the problem resolved quickly, then we will go over your options to continue on. How you proceed really depends on your particular timer and what scoring method you were using. With the timer, some display results by finish order, some display the finish times, some show both finish order and times, and some do not have any type of results display. We will go over the different scenarios that are possible. With scenario 1, we have a timer that does not have any type of results display. Unfortunately, with such a timer, you will either have to resort to old-fashioned eyeball judging or postpone your race and try again at a later date. Neither one is a very good option. That is why we don't recommend running races with timers that do not have some form of results display. Those timers are attractive because of their low cost, however, the lack of a results display can really come back to bite you. If your timer has a results display of some kind, then you have better options to get through your race. If your timer doesn't have any type of results display, but you want to trudge on, then check out scenarios 3 and 4, which we will go over in a bit. With scenario 2, we have been scoring by times and we have a timer that displays finish times. This is the easiest scenario to deal with. The extra cost for a timer that displays finish times can definitely be worth it. Results for each heat can be manually entered into the racing screen. In the racing screen, click on the manual results button. That may look like a small 1, 2, 3 icon. Note down the finish times from the timer's display and enter those times into the manual heat results screen. For a vehicle that does not cross the finish line, this screen lists the DNF time that you should enter over on the right. Click on the Save button when done. Then run your remaining heats. Note, you will need to manually reset the timer to get it ready for each heat. With scenario 3, we have been scoring by times, but our timer only displays finish order. For this scenario, we need to also consider if you are using subgroups or not. First, let's get out of the racing screen and go to the standings tab. If you are using subgroups, are you basing your speed awards on the subgroup standings? If you are, then unfortunately, you will need to restructure things to make your old subgroups to be race groups. This basically means throwing out the results for the heats that you have already run. If you are not using subgroups or are using them but are not basing your speed awards on that level, then what we can do is switch from times scoring to points. You can make that change in the software settings screen. Disable the use of subgroups if you were using them. Change to points scoring. Then save the changes. If we go over to the Racing tab, you will notice that the heats that have already been run do have points assigned for each racer. So, even when times scoring is being used, the software will track points behind the scenes. We can continue on with the race and use points scoring. Let's open up the racing screen. Click on the Manual Results button. That may look like a small 1, 2, 3 icon. Enter in the number of points for each racer. 1 point for first place, 2 points for second place, and so on. Over on the right, the screen lists the number of points that you should award to a vehicle that does not finish. Save the results when you are done. Then run your remaining heats. Note, you will need to manually reset the timer to get it ready for each heat. Our last scenario is scenario 4, where we have been scoring by points. In this scenario, it makes no difference if the timer displays finish order or times, as you will be able to easily determine the number of points to award each racer. In the racing screen, click on the Manual Results button. That may look like a small 1, 2, 3 icon. Enter in the number of points for each racer. 1 point for first place, 2 points for second place, and so on. Over on the right, the screen lists the number of points that you should award to a vehicle that does not finish. Save the results when you are done. Then run your remaining heats. Note, you will need to manually reset the timer to get it ready for each heat. In this video we covered the different scenarios on how to deal with a timer communications problem that comes up during your race. Ideally, the communications interface will work perfectly during the race, but it does help if you are prepared in case a problem does arise.